Hello and welcome back to the Poisoner's Almanac. I am your co-host, Adam.
I'm Rebecca.
How are you today, my dear?
I'm functioning. Halloween was last night, so we had trick-or-treating.
Yes.
And we walked a lot, and then our daughter was after a while was like, I'm tired, I can't walk anymore. So, yeah, that was fun. And then this morning she was definitely tired because she got out of the car at the car line. She got out of the car and she just stared at me. I was like, backpack. You need your backpack.
She's not fully online right now.
No, she's not. So should be fun.
The both of you look so adorable. She had this cute little vampire costume, and her hair was up in two little buns.
Yeah.
And she had some face tattoos and some press-on nails, and it was
they were face decals. Okay.
Face decals. Excuse me.
Yeah.
She looked adorable, and you had your full Danica Fendir from the Crescent City book series costume. You had the pink hair. You had the jacket that you made that said "Through love, all is possible" on the back, and you just looked very Pack of Devils, Crescent City Auxiliary. It was very cute.
Yes, well, Halloween's over now, and it's now November. Now people are going to be rushing to do their Christmas stuff, and
it's the most stressful time of the year.
It is, because then people are like, oh, and then you got those other people that are like, why doesn't anybody ever remember Thanksgiving? Well, first of all, Thanksgiving's like only an American thing, right? So, and honestly, Thanksgiving kind of gets on my nerves. I like the food, and I understand you're supposed to be thankful, but you're supposed to be thankful like every day, right?
Sorry, the way you say that makes me giggle.
I get it, but I feel like the holiday is also sort of built on quite a bit of lies. So, but tradition, I guess. So,
but it feeds the capitalist beast.
It does.
So it's gonna stay.
And but
yeah. So yeah, we are super excited to be here with another episode for you guys. And that brings us to housekeeping. If you would, follow us on whatever platform you're listening on. Make sure you follow us on social media. We have links in the show notes, specifically the podcast Instagram, which we're at 800, almost 900 followers.
Something like that.
I say let's get to 1,000 this week. Let's do this.
Oh, no pressure.
Yeah. Thanks in advance for leaving 5-star reviews on whatever platform you're listening on. That functions like a tip jar. It pushes the podcast further into the algorithm and into the ears of listeners just like y'all.
Y'all.
Just like y'all. Also, the
Shoot
Patreon.
Darn.
What's that?
Shoot darn.
The Patreon is up and running, and it is popping. Let me tell you. We have gotten a sample back of our first piece of merch, our Poisoner's Almanac t-shirt. It's got the logo that you guys see on the Spotify page and on the Patreon. It's on this tri-blend t-shirt that is super soft. We're going to make a video and post it so everybody can see.
Yeah, also it does have tags, but they easily rip out. I made sure of that. So for all my tag hating friends,
that's right,
they easily just rip out. So I did it as soon as it got here.
Exactly.
But
I wonder if they have a tagless option.
I don't know. That was a thing. It was hard to it didn't even show in the description whether it did or not. So it was kind of hard to tell because you couldn't see it in the picture either.
It's true.
So it was kind of hard to figure that out.
So we're gonna do t-shirts, hoodies, stickers.
And this particular site can do international.
That's too. Right. So it's available. Yeah, the shipping and the payments are available internationally. So and we know many of you are overseas. You're not U.S. based, and so you got to have access to all this stuff. So we're going through Teespring. They host everything, and we're going to be, running through merch ideas. And when we land on something that you guys have requested or is in demand, we're going to order a sample of it to make sure, it's a satisfactory product, and then we'll publish a listing for it so you guys can get your hands on it.
Yeah, we still got to figure out like cups, and I think someone mentioned flower pots.
Flower pots.
That'd be fun.
We had somebody suggest
Yeah.
flower pots. So then you can grow a plant or a flower.
But something we've discovered is shipping stuff like that overseas is quite costly. So we'll have to find a way to do that.
Right. That's why we jumped on going through a platform like Teespring to, kind of streamline all of that for us. So yeah, keep your eye out for merch. It is in the works. Also, Patreon is Becca has started to work on bonus episodes.
Yes.
So those will be paid patron access only. So if you want to access that other stream of content, and it's going to be good.
I think I could probably start recording some probably like next week, honestly.
Ooh.
Now that I feel like October, like September was way busier than it should have been. Like I was looking forward to a boring September, and it was everything but.
It was nothing like that.
I'm not going to say the same about November, lest I jinx it. But I'm really, I'm shooting for like saying no to everything this month.
Mm-hmm.
So.
So a perk of being a paid patron member is you get shouted out by name here on the podcast. The paying patrons are as follows: 87 Pins Girl 71, Mara Santiago, Kate the Fairy, Grace Lahan, Genevieve, Nahev Shetreat, Jay Went, Incan Hafner, Kiri Yorsek, Tay of Sunshine, Monique, Shane R, Sue Steves, James Mills, Megan Geiler, Liz B, Woolly Wolf NZ. It still makes me giggle. Mama G, Nicole Rivers, Richard Miyako, Heather Nolan, Katie Rose, Kaylee, Sasha Rubel, Maya Shostak. Maya DM'd us and told us how to pronounce her name.
Cool.
It's the last name is spelled SZOSTOK.
Ooh, cool.
But that's pronounced like an SH in English. Shostak.
Cool.
Yes. Maggie's Yarm, Ogre the Viking, excuse me. Lynn Rocket. Hello.
What's up?
She's actually a friend of ours. And Brett Moser. Thank you guys so much for being supporters of the show. Also, there is Spotify listener support still available only to US-based listeners. They are as follows: Taylor McCaleb, Drew Revis, Delshawn Harris, and Heather Nolan. Thank you guys so much for all your support.
You guys rock.
You guys rock. Send questions or content suggestions to the podcast Instagram. Link in the show notes, poisoners_almanac on Instagram. Leave a comment, send a DM, either way. Let's get up to, let's crack that 1,000 follower threshold on the old podcast Instagram. What do you say? What do you say?
Oh my God.
Okay. What are we talking about today, my dear?
Well, first, I do want to start this episode with kind of a correction for last week, because last week we discussed some stuff about like voodoo and hoodoo and stuff.
Yeah.
And I said that hoodoo was a darker version of voodoo.
Okay.
I got this understanding from some reading that I had done, but after looking further into it, this is actually not an accurate definition.
Oh. So
I want to correct myself.
Did somebody DM us about this?
I think it was a comment. So I looked,
was it a comment?
Yeah, and I was like, I'm gonna look deeper into that.
Okay.
So neither is darker than the other, but from what I've gathered now from multiple sources, they differ in that voodoo has more of a focus on the spiritual world. So like there's like these spirits known as loas, I think is how you pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
And it has its own like priests and rituals and such, while hoodoo is more nature focused. So they use like natural objects such as roots, herbs, etc. for like spiritual. Oh my God, using natural objects such as roots, herbs, etc. for spiritual and healing purposes. So do forgive me for being inaccurate there. My main interest is in poisons, plants, folklore, and medical science, but learning about different cultures and their practices and such is a huge bonus that I've definitely found enjoyable. So,
fantastic.
Yeah, love that.
Sure. Anytime you guys reach out to us with clarification about topics, we're perfectly willing to go and clarify that on our end.
Because we're here to learn too. We enjoy that stuff. Okay, I'm just gonna try to put my computer up here because
you got room.
I think so. I am tired, so I'm just going to literally fold myself into this chair. Now on to something new and somewhat controversial, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had a listener and supporter of ours recommend that we talk about fluoride. and its history and use, plus possible effects as a poison in enough amounts. So now, as a nurse, I have read some research about fluoride and its protection against cavities and all. It's definitely helpful in the dental realm. So what about fluoride has been controversial? Well, like any substance, fluoride in high amounts can be considered poisonous. So let's discuss how so and whether we should be concerned or not. Now, I think it's important to approach this kind of subject with peer-reviewed research, because it's really easy to just write headlines using research titles out of context. We see that a lot these days.
Oh my God. And that is that is the antithesis of critically consuming clinical research data. Please
it's very So be careful when you see like social media where it's like, this headline. It's like, well, did they read the study? You don't know.
Vast majority of the time, no. And I cannot tell you how many times news articles, especially during the pandemic, news articles would include, they would cite a research study, and then they would say, like at the bottom of the article, of course, it's preprint, which means it hasn't even been peer reviewed or verified or published yet. They just got a hold of it in its most embryonic form. Anyways,
and that kind of stuff, there's, panic, things like that grabs people's attention. So, but fluoride's a very interesting substance, and there are good things about it. There are bad things about it. So it is definitely worth looking into. So, yeah. I lost my space. Here we go. Now, you have to remember, too, that sometimes news articles are going to be biased. So, like, even during the COVID stuff, there was a lot of bias here and there, and it's hard. It's getting harder and harder to find just objective. Like,
you really just have to look at, honestly, you have to,
just the facts. Just please,
Yeah, you honestly have to just go for, like, wire services, like the Associated Press or Reuters, something like that.
And it's okay to have opinions, but
certainly,
I think a lot of people are getting to the point where we forget what the difference between fact and opinion are.
We are,
especially in the news.
Yes, we are in what could be described as an epistemological crisis or an epistemic crisis, which means, as in general, we kind of don't know how we know what we know for sure. Like, it's not clear. Like, it's, you've heard it called the death of expertise, quote unquote. It's like there's so many conflicting factors that keep the lay people in any particular field from ever feeling like they know which way is up. And that is a very scary place to be.
I mean, I've been in that place since childhood, but anyway.
That's really deep.
So, yeah. Anyway, now you remember like the Poison Squad episode? Like we talked about like brands having their own scientists do the research and stuff. So
that's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that going on. Not just and I'm not just saying that's been going on with fluoride, but that's been going on with just about everything that probably we'll talk about. So it's easy to sort of get caught up in some of that. And I'll be honest with you, when I was doing research on this subject, it was very difficult because a lot of the stuff I was reading, it was like really hard to sift through, because some of it would be like, yeah, there's this, but also in this study, this, and this happened. So we can't really make good conclusions about this. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that at the beginning? So, but yeah, I'm gonna go through the most important stuff that I did find. So there's been a lot of talk around fluoride and other chemicals found in our water and such. Personally, I'm more concerned, honestly, over the preservatives that we use in food, especially here in America. I'm not sure what it's like everywhere else, but I feel like we're not as bad as it was during the Poison Squad peeps days, but like, it could be better. Now, fluoride is the ionic form of the element fluorine. Okay. It is a naturally occurring mineral that can be found in trace amounts in soils, water, plants, and foods. And one plant that tends to take up more naturally occurring fluoride than others is tea, actually. So black and green teas can contain 170 to 400 milligrams per kilogram of fluoride. So because it kind of gets it from like the soil. It just kind of sucks it right up. So good to know, especially if you live in a place where maybe the water has too much fluoride, which we'll talk about in a minute. Now, meats and fish can contain up to 5 milligrams per kilogram of fluoride, depending on the method of preparation, apparently, and probably where you're at. Because remember, a lot of this stuff is like bioaccumulating. You know, you get like whether it's pollution or chemicals or whatever, minerals, so it can bioaccumulate, and then you end up eating that thing, and then you get some of it. So
this would be from like livestock ingesting it.
Yeah, like or fish
from their food source.
Yeah, and then you eat them, and then that kind of thing. Now, fluoride has been shown to prevent cavities, strengthen weakened tooth enamel, reverse early tooth decay, and stop some bacterial growth in the mouth that could lead to decay or infection. Sounds great, so why the controversy? Well, fluoride can also be toxic in high amounts or in long-term exposures of certain amounts, and it's sometimes added in our drinking water depending on where you are. Here, however, is where our good friend Paracelsus comes in again. So, dosis sola facit venenum. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but it's the dose makes the poison in Latin.
We should get that on a t-shirt.
You should.
And we will.
Yeah. So we're going to discuss why that is so important with fluoride. So where did the idea to add fluoride to our water come from? Well, we need to first discuss teeth, and teeth are important, right? We aren't sharks. We don't get rows and rows of teeth to replace broken or fallen ones, as they do. Kind of crazy that they do. I feel like that's not fair. Like I understand that like they use theirs a lot more, and like if they fall out a lot more. But like for a predator, that just seems a little unfair. Like they just get rows and rows of
Touche, evolution.
Anyway, so, but yeah, we don't get that. We typically get baby teeth, and then those fall out. We get permanent teeth as the molars just sort of grow in on their own. Also, what is the point of wisdom teeth? I don't know.
I am no wiser.
I need to look into that. I need to look into that more, to be honest.
So little wisdom from those wisdom teeth.
Yeah, if there's a dentist out there listening, send me an answer. What is the point of wisdom teeth? Anyway,
the point is to fund the oral surgery practice.
Yeah, I only had 3. Like people have different like amounts. Apparently, I only had 3. One of mine did not grow in. Did I get a discount then? I don't know. I didn't pay for it. My mom did. So. I was kidding. Because that was when I was still a teenager. Now, teeth are made up of 4 different tissues. So you got your enamel, dentin, cementum, and those are the hard parts. And then you have the pulp, which is like the soft tissue where the nerves and blood vessels are underneath all that. And you'll know if those are exposed because tooth pain can really hurt.
You feel it.
Yeah. The main part we are looking at here is enamel because we need it to protect against tooth decay, which can be painful and lead to some pretty awful infections. And enamel is like super hard, but it can be eroded away. Now, some of these infections can and have become sepsis and cause death. This was actually the 5th or 6th leading cause of death during the 1600s. So
100% believe that. Fun fact.
And even as late as the early 1900s, tooth infections resulted in death between like 10 to 40% of the time, depending on various factors.
Of course. Had a patient who was having a terrible time with a hip replacement that had gotten infected. She was placed on IV antibiotics at home. And this is like a 6 or 8 week course of basically the strongest stuff you can get without being in the hospital, right? Excuse me. They actually had to take out the implants of her hip replacement and put in what is known as spacers, which are just placeholders that can be in the patient's body while they try to clear the infection. We're seeing her before she actually has the final replacement. She's finished IV antibiotics, and we just get to talking. And she had been drinking copious amounts of soft drinks and all sorts of other beverages with high fructose corn syrup, mostly, sugary
Acid,
drinks.
yeah.
Yes. Her teeth were rotting out of her head. And I finally said, she happened to mention, oh man, this tooth is killing me. I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Because if you have a tooth infection or a toothache, surgeons will not operate on you because there's a chance, or you do have infection somewhere else in your body. They're not going to cut you open.
Because, it can become septic really quick.
100%. And so I could not believe what was happening, but I was like, you have to go to the dentist. Like there's no reason to proceed with anything to do with your hip replacement until you see a dentist. And you have to have the dental work done and the infection cleared out of your head, out of your mouth.
And look, I don't like going to the dentist, but I know it's important.
Oh.
Like it's a lot of
supremely important.
And I respect dentists very much because I'm sure they put up with a lot, as well as the dental hygienist. But I've been seeing the same one since childhood. So, but
yes,
they are very important in what they do. They're just trying to help because honestly, if you let your teeth go, it's only going to become more expensive and more painful later.
Listen, 100% true. Dental health is general health. It honestly is.
And remember, it can cause heart issues if you have tooth decay and things like that. Oh, man. So.
Yes. So all that to say, take care of your teeth,
your
please.
Teeth are important.
If you have insurance and it covers dental, go to the dentist. If you don't have insurance, trust me, we're actively advocating for more access to basic health care.
Yeah, it's rough out there and it's expensive. I get it.
Yes.
It sucks. We're literally paying for our daughter to have the Invisalign thing right now. She's 9, but like she has a tooth that is blocking another tooth. It's rough. Yeah. So, teeth. Why can't they do what we want them to do? Now it is rare now to die of a tooth infection because we do have better dental care and we have antibiotics. And honestly, one of my bonus episodes, I really want to talk about how antibiotics came about because that is so fascinating to me. I had a goldfish named Alexander Fleming at one point in my childhood because I was obsessed with Alexander Fleming. I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. I know.
Oh my God. That is so adorable.
Yes.
See, that's you may have told me that before and I completely forgot. And I'm just here, like, feels like I'm hearing it for the first time.
Oh, what is my life?
What a dime piece.
Anyway, but you need to have an understanding of what causes tooth decay, and that would be mainly acid-producing bacteria reacting to the sugars and starches of what we eat and drink. So remember, sugar was huge when it hit England, and there was a jump in abscessed teeth killing people soon after. Like you can go through some of the old documents and see there was 40 people this week that died of teeth. It just says teeth. It's like, oh my God.
That's my favorite medical examiner right there.
I would be so mad though if that's what killed me. I don't know. Anyway, in 1901 there was a Colorado Springs dentist named Frederick McKay, and he started to notice that he had some patients coming in with discoloration in their teeth. Today it's known as fluorosis. Even so, these patients seemed to have fewer cavities than others did. So he did some looking into what was causing the discoloration and found out that there was high levels of fluoride in the Colorado Springs drinking water. Just naturally. It was just naturally there. More so in this area, I guess. Now, after this discovery, it was proposed that fluoride be added to drinking water all over in small amounts so as to prevent cavities while not allowing for toxicity, which, that they have to go through some testing to see what dose that would be.
The toxicity of our city.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine that dentist singing that in Colorado Springs. So, further study was done. And Grand Rapids, Michigan was the first in 1945 to add about 1 part per million of fluoride into the water supply. Ontario did as well, and it was confirmed through evidence found in dental patients to prevent tooth decay. Now, most states in America, except Hawaii, where it's banned, fluoridates the drinking water. Now, this is mainly a state issue. It's not a federally mandated thing. So
State by state.
yeah, while most states do fluoridate their water, not all of them do. So it's really
because the
it's
water
up
supply
to
isn't the same. It's not homogeneous.
right,
across.
and it's up to the state government really to
Sure.
sort of decide whether to participate or not. Now the EPA has recommended that no more than 2 milligrams per deciliter be added to drinking water to prevent fluorosis or the discoloration of teeth. I think the absolute maximum is like 4 milligrams for health concerns and such. But the states who participate in fluoridating water here in America typically do so at only 0.7 to 1.2 milligrams per deciliter. There is actually a website where you can go and view like the monthly fluoride amounts in the drinking water for each state. I'll include that in like the
show notes.
And okay. I'll see if I can do it in the Instagram too.
Sure.
Or you could just look up My Water's Fluoride if you live in the States. You might be able to do it in other countries too, but I know here you can do that.
Sure.
Now, other countries involved in the fluoridating of water include Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, parts of the UK, Singapore, Hong Kong, Canada, Israel, Spain, South Korea, Chile, and other parts of South America, Malaysia as well. Some that used to but no longer do include Japan, Finland, Sweden, the Netherlands, Germany, and some others. And much of the reason these countries stopped adding fluoride to their water is because there is enough naturally occurring calcium fluoride already there.
Does it normally occur organically as calcium fluoride? Is that how it's ingested?
It could be sodium fluoride. I think sodium fluoride is what's typically added. There's other like versions of fluoride that could be added to the water. And I can't recall the names.
I just love talking about the easily attachable and detachable ions that attach to the main, because it doesn't occur as fluoride in the wild. Right. It's sodium fluoride. Those gorgeous little sodium ions, just hold it by the hand and take it right into your body.
I mean, don't we all need a sodium ion to do that?
And then they dissociate, which is also helpful.
I mean, yeah, they give you the space, right?
It's like they know you.
They give you the space to either go and help or to destroy people. Thanks. Now, yeah. And also some like consider it unethical to just add stuff to water without the consent of those drinking it, which I get. Like, certainly. And I can imagine, like, especially with other things that certain governments have done, not just our own, but everywhere. Like, now they say they're going to add something to the water. I can imagine being like, okay, what do you mean you're going to add something to the water?
Yeah.
Like, what you're
going to
talk about it? Because, like, these kind of hasty decisions being made, not everybody can see the behind the scenes research going on, and you just saying we're going to do this. There's going to be people that are like, what is this? Sure. I didn't say yes to this, so right. I totally get that.
Well, there's supposed to be this trickle down effect from elected officials to appointed regulatory bodies, which is how we're supposed to have a say in it, but it gets too granular. Yeah, in the US it can get very granular and out of pocket for regular citizens.
And I'm not I'm not against fluoride being in the water as long as it's in certain amounts, because I understand that it does help.
It's contextual.
It does help the teeth, and it's actually kind of an equality issue because like many of us do have like you and I have access to dental care. And we have there's toothpaste. Yes, it has fluoride in it, but you spit it out. It goes on your teeth and then you spit it out. You're supposed to. You're not supposed to eat it.
Yeah, don't eat that.
No. Mouthwashes, anything like that. Like we have access to that, so our teeth can be healthy, but not everybody does. And so like fluoride being in the water is more of a for those who may not have access to other kinds of like fluoride or dental care, that kind of thing is supposed to help prevent tooth decay in them for them.
What's so funny is I've heard a handful of very successful stand-up comedians who really only got dental care once their career took off. Because, a lot of great comedians, they grew up in extremely painful and difficult situations. It's what made them funny. And then they actually become monetarily and commercially successful. and then they actually get to have healthcare for the first time in
Yeah.
their lives.
You ever seen that meme where it's like, but didn't the trauma and all the hard stuff like make you stronger? Nope, but it made me funnier.
Made me funny.
Yeah. So, yeah.
We laugh so we don't cry.
So yeah, it's beneficial to those who don't have access to good dental care. So it makes cavity prevention more of an equal thing, because taking care of your teeth is important. It's part of your body. It should be a part of healthcare. Although I know, obviously it's not when it's concerning insurance, because you know what, I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah, it's a different podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Now, there are areas of the world in which fluoride levels are way above the recommended levels, and exposure has led to some concerning health problems. In India, many people are exposed to high levels of fluoride through food and contaminated groundwater. The rock salt that's mined there is a big part of their culture, and it's used a lot in their cooking. However, it may contain as much as 157 parts per million. And just for reference, the WHO,
Yep.
the World Health Organization, states that recommended levels not be over 1 to 5 parts per million. So it's a pretty big.
The Who, my favorite rock band, coming through once again.
I'm telling you. But yeah, fluoride dissolves easily in water, and as such, much of the untreated groundwater in parts of India can have as much as 48 parts per million. So you're getting it like in your food and in the contaminated water, so it's just going to add up.
I cannot help but think it dissolves easily in water because it's naturally occurring as sodium fluoride. Any sodium compound, it's just a little helper ion. As soon as it hits water, it dissociates into a solution easily.
Yeah. It's a salt. So, yeah. Now, with temperatures rising and weather patterns changing, people in rural areas, I have a hard time saying rural areas have been digging deeper and deeper wells into the ground, further contaminating the water they drink. So it's just kind of a vicious cycle.
And that's where the Balrogs live.
Yes, be careful where you dig. Those taking in these excessive amounts of fluoride have suffered from skeletal fluorosis, which weakens the bones and causes stiff joints, pain, and impaired mobility. It can get so severe that it results in permanent disability, actually. And this much fluoride intake has also been linked to the anemia problems that have been plaguing much of India. Those most at risk for these complications are pregnant women and children, as their bones are still developing. Children, because their bones are still developing. Pregnant women, because of the fetuses and babies and such. Also, like when you're pregnant as a woman, like it's like they suck the calcium right out of you. Like
yes,
you can end up, your teeth will change over pregnancy. It's no joke.
That is wild.
As do like other parts of your body. It's weird.
The physiological cost of pregnancy is quite staggering.
It can hurt your teeth a lot. So if you're pregnant and you feel like your teeth are changing, see somebody about that, because it can be a thing.
Also, congratulations, you're diabetic now.
Oh my gosh, that can happen too.
Yes,
like
gestational diabetes.
You've never had a history of it in your life, and then all of a sudden, and it's not because you did anything. It's just sometimes it happens. Sometimes it just happens. Yeah. So. Yeah. So older populations are also dealing with disabilities relating to their own bouts with skeletal fluorosis, though. So now there have been plants for defluorization of the water installed. They were installed in like the early 2000s, and plans were made to carry out assessments and diagnoses so that proper care can be given. So there's been some plans put into place to help with this. Now, if treated with safe drinking water and the right supplements, it has been discovered that children under 12 can be cured of skeletal fluorosis. So it's something that, they need to be able to assess, diagnose, and treat.
Yeah.
Now, diet changes have also had to be recommended in areas that have treated or safe water, as the salt and other food items have become sources of exposure. So like maybe you're eating a little bit too much of that rock salt or something else that has too much fluoride in it. It can cause problems. Some with drinking water within the safe limits have also been concerned over possible health issues that may be caused by fluoride use over time. So, such as fluorosis, which is more of an aesthetic issue. Fluorosis is like the staining of teeth, like get these little spots, basically from the too much fluoride.
is strictly aesthetic though? Or is it
On the teeth, yeah.
okay.
More of an aesthetic thing.
Okay.
Skeletal fluorosis, which is not just an aesthetic thing, where you have weakening and pain in the bones and joints over time. There's been some concern over possible thyroid problems and possible cognitive or neurological problems.
Mhm.
So we're going to talk about some of that with some of the research I've done. Now, what about acute toxicity? Because you can, and not cute.
It's not cute at all.
No, because I knew you were going to jump in on that. But there is.
I didn't even have a chance. Okay.
So, can you be poisoned in one go? Of course you can, but not just through normal activities. So, like, this doesn't occur with this form of toxicity that I'm about to talk about. Is not going to happen to you just from drinking water. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In 1942, a terrible case of accidental poisoning occurred at the Oregon State Hospital, where 2,700 patients were being housed at that time. Now, after having a meal of scrambled eggs, patients began having immediate symptoms such as vomiting blood, writhing in agony with abdominal pain, having seizures, and experiencing respiratory distress.
Okay.
Up to 400 patients became sick, and 47 died, some within minutes. Some thankfully refused to eat after tasting them. One nurse refused to give the eggs to patients after tasting them herself, and she became sick as she lived. Now, this was during World War II, so some sort of terrorist attack was suspected at first, as the eggs were used were federal surplus, distributed by the government to various state facilities like hospitals and schools.
Mm-hmm.
So, they were worried about something like that happening. Now, the eggs cooked. The cooked eggs, the eggs taken during autopsies, and the uncooked eggs were tested to, see if they all had whatever substance was poisoning them in it. And once the other uncooked eggs were found to be safe, as opposed to the definitely fluoride poisoned cooked eggs, an assistant chef came forward with some info. He had sent one of the patients down to a basement storeroom to fetch some powdered milk, but instead he accidentally brought back cockroach poison.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the key that the chef sent the patient with apparently fit both storerooms down there. So he went into the wrong one. Because I was looking into it, I was like, did they keep it in the same place? But apparently there's two storerooms, and he went in the wrong one, got the wrong white powder.
Unbelievable.
Also, giving patients keys or access to rooms like this was against the rules at the time. Anyway, it got mixed with the eggs, and boom, poisoned eggs. It turns out they were understaffed, and the dietitian that had been working there left for a different place, so things were not being as efficiently stored or kept up with.
Oh, man.
Yeah. The assistant and the chief cook were arrested, and the first was charged with involuntary manslaughter, while the latter was charged with accessory after the fact, because they had realized what had happened after retracing the patient's steps and decided to keep quiet out of fear. So they just kind of, were like, well, I'm not going to tell anybody. Now, sodium fluoride has been used in insecticides and in rat and roach poisons. It looks like a white powdery substance similar to flour or baking powder. It works fast, and it is deadly. Symptoms of acute poison include respiratory arrest, cardiac depression, vomiting, diarrhea, and salivation. This was not the only time this sort of thing had happened. A few years before, at a Salvation Army shelter in Pennsylvania, 48 men became ill and 12 died as a result of an accident when cockroach powder was mixed with pancake mix.
Wow.
Yeah. After the Oregon State Hospital incident, poison labels became required by law. Apparently they weren't at that point. And
massive yikes.
So, going back to the poison squad. Yeah. So that became required. And regulations regarding staffing at the hospital were installed. More regulations. I don't know if it's...
Sure they were.
Yeah.
If you ask any nurse in any hospital, they'll be like, what regulations, bro?
Well, at the time, apparently it was I think 1 to 10 patients for them at that time.
Oh, that's fine.
That's insane. That is insane. So you can probably see why having it in drinking water might be somewhat controversial. Like people are like, you want to put this in our drinking water? Now, I was able to find some studies on benefits versus possible health concerns during my research. So we're going to talk about some of that.
Okay.
And again, like you have to remember too, the amounts are different. Like the amount that we're getting in drinking water is not the amount that these people were getting in their eggs. So
yeah, that was
it is very
situation.
This was a accidental.
The dose makes the poison.
Yeah. So I just want to say that's not the same exact thing they're putting in your water. It's the same chemical or mineral, but it's not.
Okay, I have to mention
the same dose.
One of the best podcasts out there is the Basement Yard podcast with Joey and what's his buddy's name? I forget. Is it Frank? Anyway.
How you doing?
Yeah. But one of them was confused. They were like, wait a minute. Is the iron in our food like iron that you build buildings with? And his co-host was like, yeah, it's basically the same. He's like, no, it isn't. He's like, yeah, no, Joey, it is. But it's not. It's not occurring in the exact same compound,
right?
Or the exact same, molecular conformation, because it's one is building a building, the other is being absorbed by your intestine. It's a slightly different situation.
And used to
Sure, we don't build buildings with ferrous sulfate. Ferrous sulfate is absorbed by your digestive tract.
I mean, rust is ferrous,
iron. Oxidized iron. Yes.
Yeah. So it's always fun too.
Yes.
So what if your insides rust? It's kind of fun. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Rusty insides. Okay, so yeah. But if you don't know, this is you hear this story about these people dying of too much fluoride and the insecticide, and I'm like, we're gonna put fluoride in the water. It can be very
sure.
It can cause a lot of, I'm sure, fear for some people too. Still, moving on. Getting technical for a second, fluoride is absorbed into the bloodstream via the GI tract. Calcium, such as that in milk, actually inhibits the absorption a bit. Fun fact. Now, the largest amount absorbed goes to the bones, literally 99%. It can also cross the blood-brain barrier, which is honestly permeable to a surprising amount. And typically only about 0.1% is absorbed there. It can also cross the placenta and is ultimately mainly excreted through the kidneys. Overall, I could not find any essential use for fluoride in the body apart from the prevention of cavities and tooth decay. I did read about a study in which children who were breastfed by mothers supplemented with fluoride in low occurrence areas had higher heights and weights. Again, this was the only source of fluoride they were getting, though. So
gotcha.
Yeah. There again, in high amounts, it seems to lead to anemia. So the dose would have to be precise, I suppose.
Yeah, it must be preventing the uptake of. It's got to do something with iron uptake in that case, because it's preventing hemoglobin from rising in the blood.
Yeah, and you can look at calcium, iron, all these different things. If you take iron supplements, you're supposed to not take it with certain things until a certain time. There's certain things that prevent vitamin D from being absorbed, all kinds of stuff. So if you're taking vitamins, it's actually good to look at when to take it, what not to take it with, because sometimes you can be taking it and then, I don't know, you take something else or you eat or drink something else and it's just going to cancel it out for the most part. So yeah, the body's a funny place.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so high amounts, around 38.5 milligrams per liter in water, can lead to infertility in males. That's a pretty high amount, though. Another area of concern was developmental and neurological toxicity. One study I looked at concerning fluoride animal studies, they were doing it in rats and rabbits and such, stated a comprehensive summary of studies published between 1990 and 2005 is provided in the National Research Council report, demonstrating that developmental processes are susceptible to fluoride. Upon further reading, the lower end of doses provided to the rats in the studies that showed developmental changes was 11.4 milligrams per kilogram, a day. Another study concerning neurobehavioral issues also used rats and found that performance deficits in learning and memory tasks when fluoride levels went above 100 milligrams per liter in the drinking water. So like but just you have to remember that the recommended level for U.S. drinking water is at 0.7 milligrams per liter, which is much less.
Yeah.
And it's that way pretty much around the world. Like, I don't think nobody should be doing that amount.
No.
No. And there are places, there's literally places that fluoridate the water too, like in India and such, because of the problems being caused there.
Yeah, because the rock salt is giving everybody all the fluoride they can handle.
And also, these are rats. And from what I read in this same review, 1.4 milligrams per liter drinking water a day in adults, of fluoride in adults, can be approximated to 7 to 9 milligrams per liter per day in rodents. So because they're smaller,
right? Yeah, they're going to use rats because it's it is the most quote unquote ethical way to test. Yeah. There's some experimental limitations because you can't have a control group for fluoride poisoning.
It's gonna be like a pet rat listening to this, and they're gonna be like, "What?
Mom, what are you listening to?
Oh my god!" No, I'm a big animal fan, so I get it.
Right, you want to be ethical in your treatment of animals, even in the.
Oh, don't even get me started on some of the I love poisons, but like all of the research, like old research or like old ways of testing for things involving animals, I'm like, oh, I hate this.
No such thing as an institutional review board.
Also, screw you, Pavlov. Anyway. So let's talk about humans a little more, since, we're human.
We are.
In a meta-analysis of 27 studies from 2012 featured in the Lancet in 2014, fluoride was named as a behavioral neurotoxin. It should be noted, however, that they state that their findings were limited because of the variables at play, mainly that the children being studied were exposed to high levels of pollution, age adjustment of the cognitive test scores were not reported, and the fact that there may have been other sources of fluoride other than in the drinking water. So, like, they called it that, but there really wasn't, they couldn't really support it with good
the threshold
evidence.
For how they classify it is really important. And this is a meta-analysis, like they analyzed tons of different studies.
The one that I'm talking about, the meta-analysis looked at that particular study.
Sure. So just for the listener's sake, a meta-analysis is published research that is peer-reviewed, but it does not involve data collection. It's simply gathering all of the most pertinent data available at the time, and then
reviewing that.
Yeah, making a comprehensive, critical statement about it in that moment. So they can't, all of the variables that you would have to control for to get that, assembly line oversimplified solution that our lizard brains love. It's usually not going to happen in a meta-analysis. It's much more difficult for that to happen.
Are you calling me a reptile?
No.
I mean, reptiles are cool. Don't get me wrong.
Right. You're wearing green, so I just figured I'd go for it.
But in a way, it in itself is a sort of peer review of those.
That's
articles, because it's critiquing them and saying like, well, there's this, but they also did this, which isn't.
Yes, it is still extremely useful
as
part, as a contribution to the literature, but it does have inherent limitations.
So they still concluded that those who were exposed to fluoride in the water had lower IQs than those that did not. However, it has since been found that in the area, IQ scores have risen in general, possibly as a result of better education. Right. So they're saying like, oh, it lowered the IQs, but when tested, but their IQs have actually gotten higher. So it's like, in general, in the area.
It's a tough way to measure the impact of fluoride in the population.
Honestly, at the same time, it's like you're also in an area where education was not a priority at the time, and now it has become.
Yeah.
So it's like, what they're saying in this is, they're saying that fluoride did this, but it could have been many other factors.
Certainly.
So
confounding variables.
So, as you can see, hunting down good research with conclusions held up by good evidence has been difficult. Most studies done considering fluoride in drinking water have been in countries where the rural areas with higher levels of fluoride are compared to the reference areas in which fluoride levels in the water are kept in the recommended dose. So even if there were signs of health problems, it could be from too much fluoride, which we already know is bad. Also, they have not taken into account such factors as nutrition, healthcare available, other environmental contaminants, such as like heavy metals.
Yeah, there's so many variables.
Yeah, education and financial distress, which, to be honest, stresses us all out. Fluoride has also been tested in the context of human intelligence by various government agencies, including the Health Research Board of Ireland, where they looked at IQ and other neurological indicators of children living in areas where there was naturally occurring high levels of fluoride present versus those living in areas where it was added to a certain dose. So not normally present, but put in at lower amounts, essentially.
Yeah.
They found that those living in areas where the fluoride levels were higher than recommended, so like they were naturally higher, did show lower IQ scores than those who lived where the fluoride was added, but in smaller amounts. It was also said, however, that the authors, this is just an actual quote from the study, the authors stated that the quality of the studies was poor. And the study design inadequate to prove or disprove a causal relationship, which is in line with the present evaluation.
And that's a big disappointment, considering all the funding that probably was used to conduct the studies.
So in other words, like, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Like, that's like what I kept coming to.
Yes.
But it seems like the trend, though, is if it does, it's in higher amounts than what's allowed in the drinking water.
If it does what?
If it does lower your IQ, or if it does cause cognitive issues or neurobehavioral issues, it's usually in much higher doses than is supposed to be allowed in the drinking water.
Than what you would normally see.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting from most of this. Now, in another study presented by the National Health and Medical Research Council in Australia, they stated that there is reliable evidence that community water fluoridation at current Australian levels of 0.6 to 1.1 milligrams per liter is not associated with cancer, Down syndrome, cognitive dysfunction, lowered intelligence, or hip fracture, which I thought was very...
the weakening of bones.
Yeah, it's like hip fracture. I was like, well, that's very specific, but cool. Yeah, so I mean, that's what they were going by with the whole bones, weakening of bones. Yeah. So there's that at least. They could not associate it with any of that. Yet another study was done by the Institute for Evaluation of Labor Market and Education Policy. This is under the Swedish Ministry of Employment. They looked at effects of fluoride exposure by drinking water throughout life on cognitive and non-cognitive ability, math scores, and labor market outcomes on a large scale, like nationwide, using those born in the country between 1985 and 1992, alongside the fluoride water data. So, like, they looked at the people born in this time in this area, as well as how much fluoride was in the water and, like, the outcomes, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So these levels of fluoride ranged from 0 to 1.5 milligrams per liter. Cognitive development was tested at the age of 16 using the national math test results and other abilities through the Swedish military enlistment data. It was concluded in this study that there were no effects on cognitive ability or non-cognitive ability connected to fluoride in the Swedish drinking water. So far, like in the levels that it's allowed, there is no issues. I said earlier that the main concern with fluoride is with pregnant women and children, because fluoride can pass the placenta and children are more susceptible to absorbing higher amounts. So one report that I found that was intended to review animal and human studies to find the association between fluoride exposure and possible cognitive or neurodevelopment problems was published by the National Toxicology Program. And they stated that there is some confidence that exposure to fluoride could cause neurodevelopment problems with children including impaired attention and memory, decreased intelligence, and possibly delayed anxiety or depression. They believe the same was not true for adults, however. This has been looked at and caused quite a bit of controversy among the scientific crowd, however. Some organizations like the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine have said that there was a possible risk of bias and insufficient evaluation of variables, as well as conclusions being too broad within that study. While there are human studies that suggest that chronic fluoride exposure may have long-term neurotoxic effects on children who have been exposed throughout their development, many other publications have called for research on the matter of neurotoxic effects of fluoride to include factors such as socioeconomic status, parental IQ and mental health, area of residence, and other chemical exposures. These are variables that could also be causes of developmental signs or issues.
Okay.
So in conclusion of the research that I weeded through, further assessment is needed to determine if the benefits of dental protection outweighs the potential neurotoxic effects. Now, from what I gather and the levels that it is at in our water, it's not dangerous. But obviously, if you're getting too much fluoride, it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
So
anytime an element like fluorine, because of how it behaves organically, anytime you introduce it to the body, it has a chance to cause a ruckus for organic tissue.
Well, and this is why it needs to be monitored. If it's going to be added to the water or to anything else, it's something that you have to monitor. And if you live in a place where it is naturally higher, or you're eating foods that it's in, it's important to monitor the intake of that.
Yeah.
So, but at least in most places where it's added and controlled in the water, like it's, is it needed by your body? Not necessarily. It does prevent cavities, but it also isn't going to cause what happened to those poor individuals in that hospital, because it's not the same dose, obviously.
Sure. That's an extreme case.
Yeah, that is an extreme case. And they're still honestly studying the effects on young children. Like if it's, and the thing with kids too is like teaching them to also brush their teeth. Because like I remember when Camilla was younger, like she used the non-fluoride toothpaste because kids are really good at like swallowing that stuff. I think she ate a whole tube of that stuff, which I was like, well, you're not ready for the fluoride kind.
No. Good point.
She did. She ate a whole tube of that, which like she wouldn't eat any food I gave her, but she'd eat that.
Wow.
And just okay.
Yes.
And me being like the overcautious, terrified parent, I literally called poison control. I was like, oh my God, she ate this whole thing of toothpaste. Is it okay?
I forgot about that.
And they were like, yeah, she's fine. And I was like,
did you tell me you did that?
I don't know, but I was anxious all the time. Still am, but back then it was like, and as a nurse, I'm like, I know that this is probably fine, but I really needed the
assurance.
The assurance, yeah. I was like, I just need someone to tell me that it's fine and that I didn't just accidentally poison my child.
And all joking aside, you guys are hearing what a wonderful mother would do for her child. That's what's going on. I was
super concernicus.
You still are.
I am. Always.
And I like that about you.
I don't know how I sleep. So yeah, another area in need of further study, however, is fluoride's effects on the mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell. Let's go. I don't know how to do my taxes, but the powerhouse of the cell, mitochondria.
I feel like the mitochondria is like that meme where it's that guy, and he's just like he's got his hand on his hip, and he's just looking like, seriously, say it one more time. But yeah, apparently mitochondria can be altered in structure and function if too much fluoride, higher than the recommended amounts, that is, are present. The mitochondria has itself been a part of cells linked to the development of some mental disorders such as depression, anxiety, and even the development of ADHD, like the structuring of the brain. Am I saying fluoride in the drinking water is causing ADHD? No. I am saying that too much fluoride in general can possibly cause the developing cells to be altered in such a way that delayed ADHD presents. So it would take like chronic exposures to higher amounts than what is allowed in the drinking water, again, from the research that I read.
Right.
Still, in some areas, the fluoride amounts are naturally higher, and there is some risk there for possible, developmental issues. So we do need to have more testing on that. So a lot of the research was a bit uncertain, in my opinion. Like, people were kind of fighting back and forth. But from what I have gathered, the collective conclusions are: 1, fluoride is in small amounts can prevent dental cavities and decay. 2, fluoride in enough amounts is dangerous and even in high enough amounts, is dangerous and even deadly. 3, the controlled amount in drinking water should be kept below 4 milligrams per liter. Honestly, it should be kept lower than that, and it typically is. 4, the U.S. Public Health Service recommends the level be at 0.7 milligrams per liter to maximize fluoride's oral health benefits while minimizing potential harms. And 0.7 milligrams per liter is a small enough amount to not see all those other problems. So 5, not everyone participates in water fluoridation. Those who do are supposed to keep it to the limit set, and those who don't often have some form of natural fluoride in their water or food already. Some, I think, like in India, Iran. Is it Iran or Iran?
Iran.
Iran.
If you're going to pronounce it correctly.
Oh, thank you.
I think.
Where did I get Iran from? I ran to the store.
No.
Where does it come from?
No. I've heard native speakers say Iran.
Okay, because I said Iran. I said Iran, and immediately my brain was like, "That's not right."
Right.
So Iran. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
I've also heard him pronounce Afghanistan.
Okay.
Pakistan. Yeah.
Cool.
If it's a native Middle Eastern or a Pakistani Afghani, if they're speaking English, they still have the pronunciation of those vowels that way.
Yeah, I am so sorry. So India, Iran, Mexico, places like that. Some of those places have too much natural fluoride and need it removed from the drinking water to prevent toxic effects. So that's pretty much what I learned in a lot of these studies. So yeah, fluoride, good for the teeth at low levels, like very low levels, but can be a damaging poison at higher levels. How do y'all feel about it? How do you feel about it? It's like fluoride is like that friend who's like, if you push him too far, not a really good friend anymore.
Correct. That's a fair metaphor.
I'm trying to think of, like, fluoride is like, I'll think of it.
Fluoride is like that old game, Poke the Bunny, on, was it addictinggames.com, which is a website that got me through many college and grad school lectures. The game is literally, you click a white gloved hand and it pokes a bunny on the screen. That's the game. And once you poke it enough, it just turns around and bites, clamps down with teeth on your finger.
Okay. I have never played that game.
It was hysterical.
But I'm rooting for the bunny.
I lost my mind when the bunny actually bites your finger. Like, that's the entire game. And then you just start it over, refresh the screen.
That's kind of funny because I feel like you are the hand. Sometimes, like, you like doing that. You like poking until somebody's like,
Yeah.
Anyway, fun times. Poke the bunny. But if there's any dentists that want to weigh in, love to hear from you guys. I will say, like, after having Camilla, like I said earlier, pregnancy can really mess up the teeth for some people. I had to actually be on fluoride, like a special fluoride toothpaste at one point, and there was another like kind you could choose from, like a special fluoride mouthwash. You don't swallow it, mind you, because it has extra fluoride in it. But it was because, like, between having like been pregnant and like having issues with my teeth just from that, and acid reflux after the fact, because I ended up with pretty bad acid reflux during and after pregnancy. Like, the enamel on my teeth was just not doing great, and so like I was getting like a lot of watch areas on my teeth because of possible. Yeah. So like I was put on like actual fluoride treatments and stuff, but it was the kind that you spit out. It's not the kind you eat. I mean, not that you eat, not that you eat it, but like, yeah, you're supposed to spit it out and stuff.
It's strictly meant for dental health,
right? Yeah, but you have to have like a prescription for the mouthwash. So, and probably for good reason. So people aren't.
Very good reason. That label has "do not swallow" on there in all caps.
Hey, please don't do that. Yeah. So I personally am not against fluoridating water so long as it's monitored and the research supports it. However, considering what it can do in large amounts, it's safe to say that we can include it in our list of poisons.
Certainly can.
So, yeah.
Certainly can.
But thank you for the recommendation on that, because that was some really good. That was a good time researching and learning about. I had never heard of that case in the hospital in Oregon, or the other one where less people died because of the accidental.
So all in all,
fluoride poisoning.
It appears fluoridating, practical, clinically, data-driven fluoridating levels in drinking water supplies does in fact have dental benefits.
It does,
but the dose makes the poison. It can cause a ruckus.
Yeah.
When it is when the amounts get too high.
And I can see from the people who don't like the idea of something being added without their consent, because I can understand that. Like from that perspective.
This is all public record now.
Right.
It's not a it's not a shadow operation.
Like I get that. I do think it is beneficial, but I understand the other side of wanting to have a say in what goes in your drinking water and stuff. Certainly. I do, because like if they can do that, what else can they do? That kind of thing. 100%. Like I understand the mindset, because like it's not like the government has been truthful about every single thing.
They have not.
So
the government could always use a pleasantly disagreeable electorate.
And I'm not one of those kinds that is super into conspiracy theories. I'm really not. No. I'm talking
That's
about.
Why we're talking about clinical data.
Yeah. So I think it's important to keep monitoring that sort of situation.
You're never going to hear us say, "Well, I heard that." No, friends, we don't play that game.
No.
Sorry. If we say something anecdotal, we will call it anecdotal.
And if I find something that differs from what I said, I will come back with
certainly
more accurate information, because I don't like the idea of leaving something out there that's not accurate.
There is plenty of misinformation, disinformation on the internet already. Let's not add to it.
But so, yeah. Okay. So another request I've seen is the use of insulin as a poison. You good?
Yeah, sorry.
This one is definitely mentioned a lot when I see the whole "how can someone get away with murder" or whatever sort of challenge, which I mean shouldn't be a challenge. Don't murder people. Okay. However, insulin from a bottle can actually be identified in a person after death and differentiated from someone's natural insulin, just so you know. So in all honesty, you very much can be caught after poisoning someone with insulin. So especially if suspicion is upon you. So first, let's go over what insulin is and what it's used for, because I think that's important. If you don't know, it's going to be kind of hard to follow along. I know many of you already know some of this, but I like to always make sure context is included. Now, insulin is a hormone produced in the islet of Langerhans cells, fun times, of the pancreas. And it controls the body's blood glucose by pulling that glucose from the bloodstream and into the cells, where it can be used for energy. Because glucose is the body's main source of energy, and it's taken in from the diet from carbs and sugars, Most of you likely know or have known someone who has diabetes, whether it's diabetes type 1 or type 2. Now, for a refresher, type 1 is the autoimmune version. In type 1, the immune system attacks the islet of Langerhans cells of the pancreas, and insulin can no longer be made. This type can come on at any time, but is mostly first seen in childhood or adolescence. There has also been some evidence that viruses such as COVID could actually lead to type 1 diabetes, as well as other autoimmune disorders. But that's actually not something too different, because you have other, like Epstein-Barr virus can lead to autoimmune disorders. The flu has led to some autoimmune disorders. It's rare, but it can happen. Now, even stomach viruses can lead to autoimmune disorders, but that's a subject for another time. Type 1 symptoms usually come on pretty quickly, and there is no cure. So subcutaneous insulin will be ordered to be given to control blood glucose, sugar levels, those kind of things. With type 2 diabetes, the body becomes insulin resistant, basically. So insulin is still being made, although maybe not as much, but the body is no longer using it properly. And too much glucose accumulates in the blood, leading to diabetic complications. And I think there is like there's kind of a cycle here too, where your body is making insulin, and because your body is also somewhat resistant to that insulin, it just keeps making more and more, and it's basically wearing out the pancreas or the islets of Langerhans. It's just a fun thing to say, sorry.
I know, isn't it?
But like
the way you keep saying it.
And so like
Yeah.
it starts to make less,
Mhm.
but even so, your body is resistant to it.
Mhm.
So yeah. Type 2 can be around for a while before symptoms show, as it is usually more gradual.
Mhm.
Type 2 is also more common than type 1 and may be related to genetics as well as lifestyle and diet. Type 2, therefore, can often be prevented via healthy lifestyle choices, though not always,
Mhm.
very easily, because like I said, it could also be connected to genetics.
Mhm.
Type 1 cannot be prevented as it typically results from autoimmune disorder. So,
Right.
whether that's with genetics or changes caused by viruses, that sort of thing. Now, symptoms of diabetes, for those who don't know, include extreme thirst, hunger, fatigue, blurry vision, irritability, increased urination, headaches. It's just important to know that in case you may be experiencing something like that or know somebody who is, and are not sure what it could be. Now, type 2 diabetics may also experience frequent or recurring infections, poor wound healing, numbness or tingling in the hands and feet, gum problems, itching, and other issues regarding the circulatory or integumentary, the skin system.
The skin.
The integumentary system. Also, kidney issues can result from untreated diabetes as well, as we know. Also, ketoacidosis, which can be deadly.
Mhm.
Ketoacidosis comes about essentially because your body is trying to find other sources of fuel, so it begins to break down fat very quickly, during which the liver produces too many ketones, which make the blood acidic. I know that's like a lot of new words for some people, but stick with me.
Mhm.
Now, symptoms of ketoacidosis include vomiting, nausea, abdominal pain, dehydration, drowsiness, deep and fast breathing, tachypnea, as like people in
That's
the
right.
medical field might call it,
Mhm.
which is like, it always gets on my nerves when like medical professionals are like, it's tachypnea. And you're like, so fast breathing? Like, just explain what you mean. And I get it, because like
Yeah,
I'm a nurse, but I don't go around telling patients you have tachypnea. Like, no.
You have
What?
bradycardia.
Oh, like just
Know
say
your
what
audience.
it is. Yeah.
Know your audience. Use the lingo when there's people who understand the lingo.
Yeah, that drives me crazy too. It just gets on my nerves. It's very pretentious.
It's one of my favorite words.
Yeah. No, there you go.
Pretentious.
It just gets on my nerves.
Mhm.
So, yeah, don't do that. It's just annoying. So also dry skin and mouth, fruity breath, like it literally smells fruity.
It's got a fruity
Oh
bouquet.
my God. Rapid heart rate,
Really pretty.
the low blood pressure, and coma that can lead to death if not treated in time.
Mhm.
Now, these are blood glucose levels around anywhere above like 250 milligrams per deciliter. Though I have seen glucose numbers in the 1,000 range personally.
It is unreal what you will actually see happen in the wild.
You can see some really crazy numbers.
It's so
when it comes
shocking.
to blood sugar.
We actually took care of a patient for a while whose blood sugar was 0 when they did her workup. She was unconscious.
Well, that makes sense.
She
She was
survived.
unconscious.
Also, in other news, she was unconscious.
There have been walk-ins with a hemoglobin of like 2.
I just don't understand. That isn't.
Typically women stand up to anemia a lot better than
Women
men
stand
do.
up to a lot of stuff.
but maybe it's because of certain, but still, like, yeah, I've seen people walking around with anemia, like with a hemoglobin of like 2.
Yeah, dude.
Very pale, but Still hanging, still kicking, literally.
That's right.
Now, this is just diabetic ketoacidosis. There is also alcoholic ketoacidosis. There's also starvation ketoacidosis. So, but we're talking about diabetic ketoacidosis here. So insulin is needed to control the blood glucose so it does not get too high and result in all of that. However, when too much insulin is given, or is given when not needed, or say without the usual intake of food, like you give the insulin and you don't eat like you're supposed to, this can drop glucose levels too fast and too far. It's a very delicate balance. So this is when someone becomes hypoglycemic. So hypo is too little, hyper, too much. So hypoglycemic. So you have the blood glucose is basically dipping lower than 70 milligrams per deciliter for most diabetics. This would be like below 55 for non-diabetics. So kind of depends. Now the effects are easily seen and felt, and they include paleness, sweating and chills, weakness, trembling and shakiness. Like, you know how you get really shaky when you're really hungry?
Yes.
Like your blood glucose levels are dropping, basically. Lightheadedness, dizziness, extreme hunger, elevated heart rate, anxiety, irritability, confusion, tingling or numbness in the face. And it's almost like you feel like your fight or flight is in crazy motion.
Yes,
because your body wants to live, and it needs more of what it needs to live. So
yeah, like your adrenaline gets shot up when you get in that state too.
Yeah. Now, those who are hypoglycemic may have slurred speech, blurry vision, they may be disoriented or seem clumsy and may pass out. Those experiencing hypoglycemia need to urgently have some like juice or icing. Like some people keep icing in a little cup, actually. They just kind of putting it under the tongue is actually a really quick way of doing that.
You know, I've actually learned to ask my diabetic patients, do you feel it when your blood sugar gets too high or too low? Because some people don't report like really significant symptoms, which is strange because you would think that, you know, again, the textbook definitions of things sometimes don't play out in practice, but
or their bodies may simply be a little more tolerant because they've been through it before.
That's true. That's true.
So yeah. So basically anything sugary they can get into the body fast is what they need. If unconscious, a medical professional, or I think you can get this not over the counter, but with a prescription, you may be able to get glucagon. This is basically to help get that blood sugar back up. If not treated, though, you are looking at coma, brain damage, organ failure, and death. It's a pretty, you need it.
Very serious.
Yeah. So it's important. Energy is important for all cellular processes, as well as you getting up in the morning. So now diabetics should always check their sugars to know if and how much insulin should be given to avoid hyper or hypoglycemia. Also, diet and carb counting is important, as those with diabetes will tell you. So that's just a bit of basic diabetic education. So why am I giving you this sort of biology, anatomy, physiology lecture? Well, to know how insulin can kill, you need to know what it does. So this also explains why it can be hard, though not impossible, to detect if it is given as a means of poison. If the person is already on insulin, it could be ruled an accident or even a suicide if not much evidence is present. It would likely be sort of easy to determine, I imagine, if the person is not taking insulin, though, and like it's found in their bodies. But at first it may seem
be a dead ringer.
Yeah, it simply may seem like the person died of hypoglycemia of unknown origins, which is rare in most cases.
It doesn't make any clinical sense.
Right. Unless the person is like malnourished, starving, that kind of thing. It doesn't, So how do you prove if someone has died as a result of too much exogenous insulin, meaning insulin from outside the body, insulin given to someone? Well, there's mass spectrometry, basically the weighing of atoms and molecules to determine the identity of a substance. There's like a whole, mass spectrometry is pretty cool. And then there's the ratio of insulin, C-peptide tests that can be used if exogenous insulin or overdose is suspected. Now, the C-peptide and insulin These are naturally produced by the body in a 1-to-1 ratio. So high insulin levels accompanied by low C-peptide levels points to added insulin from outside the body's production pathway.
Okay.
So it's going to look different than if it had made the insulin within your body than if it came from without.
Okay.
That being said, insulin is not very stable in the blood after death, so the quicker the analysis, the better, if you're going to be doing that sort of thing. Now let's talk about some cases where the killers were caught, shall we?
We shall.
Okay, in May of 1957, this is when we weren't doing the whole peptide test, but still. At the home of Kenneth and Elizabeth Barlow in the UK, Kenneth Barlow was a 38-year-old registered nurse with a 10-year-old from a previous marriage, and he found his 30-year-old pregnant wife submerged in the bathtub, unresponsive, and he would later say that he attempted to revive her. A doctor was called to the house, and she was pronounced dead there. When questioned, Kenneth explained that his wife was 2 months pregnant and not feeling well earlier, so she had gone to bed early. When he came up a little later, he found that she had vomited on the bed and was sweating, so he cleaned the bed up, and she decided to take a bath to clean herself. He fell asleep, then awoke at around 11:45 and noticed that she had not returned. That was when he found her unconscious in the tub. Though he had stated he tried to resuscitate his wife, there was no sign of water outside the tub or on him or any appearance of such a feat taking place. There were other suspicions, like the fact that Elizabeth's pupils were somehow dilated for some reason. Like, that doesn't usually just happen because you drown. And there were no signs of a struggle at all. Like, it's like she just sort of slipped under and didn't fight anything.
Right. Like she was already expired.
Or that she was unconscious and unable. So she had drowned, that was clear, but considering the small size of the bathtub and how healthy Elizabeth had been prior to all of this, things weren't adding up to Kenneth's story so far. Like, it didn't make sense that she could easily just sink in and drown, you know? They also found hypodermic syringes around the house, but apparently this could be explained away by the fact that he was a nurse, but like, I'm a nurse. I don't have hypodermic syringes hanging around my house.
1957, huh?
I don't know what the difference is.
The nurses just bring stuff home?
I mean, now I will say I've brought home like flushes, and things like that, but like I don't have just syringes hanging around my house. Like, just, whatever. I don't know, maybe some do, but they had analyzed specimens from the body for over 100 poisons and drugs, but found nothing out of sorts. So they were really looking into this. They were pretty suspicious of the guy.
Yeah.
So they looked the body over under some bright lights, and they finally found 4 needle marks on her buttocks. Well, I guess in the UK they would say her bum. Now, Kenneth explained them away by saying that he had been giving her injections of ergometrine. It's not something I've ever given, ergometrine, to induce an abortion because neither of them was happy about this pregnancy that she was in.
You just do that at home?
No, that's illegal.
Wow.
Okay. He's a nurse, by the way. He's not a doctor. You can't just bring home medicines.
Mercy.
Now, this drug was not found actually upon analysis, but something more fitting of her symptoms was. Tissue samples around the injection marks found were analyzed, and insulin was discovered. Her sickness, sweating, and just going unconscious before drowning did fit symptoms of hypoglycemia. She was not diabetic or taking insulin, yet enough was found, and in such uneven amounts throughout the tissue that it could not be natural. Like, this was actually given to her. She may have consented to these ergometrine injections, but either he had started with those, then switched to insulin, or just started poisoning her right away.
He could have lied to her.
Yeah. I mean, he could have just been giving her anything.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's ergometrine. I've never had to give this medication, so I'm not sure.
It's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, he was actually charged with her murder and sentenced to life in prison. It did not help that there was a witness who said that Kenneth had told them that insulin would make the perfect murder weapon.
Kenneth. There's so many dumb criminals.
That's a good thing. We want to catch them.
It's true.
Yeah.
Man.
Now, obviously, the tests and evidence used during this time were what was had, and suspicion did play a huge role. Let's be honest, if a person dies of hypoglycemia or shows signs of hypoglycemia and their partner works in healthcare and the victim is not diabetic or on insulin or in any other way unhealthy, you're going to be suspicious as well. Right?
Don't
like,
be suspicious.
I feel like
Don't be suspicious.
there's going to be some signs that are going to point to like, something's wrong about this.
Yes, that makes that it's not a straight line
Yeah.
clinically.
Still, suspicion alone does not win a murder case. So thankfully, they were able to find the insulin in the tissues they analyzed. So that was helpful. Thankfully, they were diligent enough to like look into this that well.
Yeah.
So another case was William Archer. He was born in Arkansas in 1912. He had an interest in medicine for a long time, but never had the money to pursue it. And he later moved to California, where he worked as an assistant at the Camarillo State Mental Hospital. Patients here would be treated with insulin shock therapy, which honestly sounds terrifying to me. They would just give them enough insulin to put them in comas for a while. And apparently this was one way that they were treating schizophrenia at this time.
Oh my God.
I know.
No, they're causing brain damage.
I know.
That's why they think it's working.
I don't know, but that seemed terrifying to me at the time. But okay.
My goodness.
Now he ended up marrying 7 times. And his wives seemed
Excuse me. Could you back up and say that again?
His wives seemed to die a lot. So just kept remarrying, I guess.
Yeah, this is before True Crime Podcast, right?
I imagine just, yeah.
Okay.
He would later be charged with killing at least 2 of them by poisoning with insulin. Could have been like at least 3, though. He was put in prison for some drug offenses at one point and later escaped, but then was caught again, but then got out. So in July of 1956, William, this guy, he called the police and reported that 2 armed robbers had come into his and his third wife's, her name was Zella, their house and injected them both with insulin. Just a weird story. It's just a really weird story.
No, this guy, he's getting some hubris at this point.
So she died the next day and needle marks were found on her body, but never on his. Police did find a syringe in the bathroom and a vial of long-acting insulin in a nearby field.
I obtained them from an obliging field.
All right, Wickham. In
That was Willoughby.
Willoughby.
Yeah.
It starts with a W. It's fine.
Same thing. It's the same character in a different book.
Basically. In 1958, his next wife, Juanita, fell into a coma. They had only been married for like 2 days at this point. So there's that.
My man's fuse is getting a little shorter.
Doctors suggested a possible barbiturate overdose based on the symptoms, but there were no actual tests going around with this. So she also had unexplainable hypoglycemia at that time. So in 1960, he's just slowly getting away with some of these at the moment. Mm-hmm. His 6th wife's ex died. So he's okay. Reportedly by slipping on a banana peel and being Sorry, yeah.
I'm not supposed to laugh.
I literally cannot help but think of like Mario Kart with the banana peels, but
that's what you get for monkeying around.
What's weird about it is like, are people believing these stories? Like the funny thing to me is people are believing these stories. Like, I'm sorry, no.
Well, the idea of a serial killer is not emerged.
Your wife's ex slipped on a banana peel and he hit his head and he died? Okay.
Cool story, bro.
Also, his nephew mysteriously died with low blood glucose after being hit by a car, quote unquote. No one saw this happen, but he said he'd been hit by a car.
And people just roll with it.
As his uncle described it as that. Now, his 7th wife also died mysteriously. Now, after testing a part of this wife's brain using an immunohistological technique that they had at the time, basically they were like using antibodies to sort of react in order to exclude substances. It's a big chemical thing. He was charged with 3 counts of murder after this, 2 of the wives and his nephew. But it is believed that he killed many more, including some of the patients at that mental hospital that he had worked at, based on some of the witness accounts.
That's sinister.
He was sentenced to death, but this was later commuted to life in prison. So there's that serial killer with insulin. Was it fireworks?
I guess so.
What are we celebrating on the 1st of November?
I have no idea.
Welcome to the South. Okay. Now there was a more recent incident of insulin being used to kill in the news. I don't know if you've heard about it. There was a nurse in Pennsylvania. And honestly, we could do a whole freaking episode on
Pennsylvania.
Well, no, I was going to say healthcare workers that
have sure.
done this, killed patients. Some people call them angels of death or angels of mercy, whatever. Anyway, this nurse was in Pennsylvania. She was recently connected to the deaths of 19 patients between the ages of 43 and 104.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and blame hospital admin.
Now, she was administering insulin to nursing home patients in 5 different nursing homes between 2020 and 2023. So she was moving around. So it was, whatever. But some of these patients were not on insulin at all. She would make sure to do this on understaffed shifts during such a time so that they would die before shift change. So the patient could not be sent to the hospital by someone else where someone might get suspicious.
Yeah. But please let private equity keep buying up all of the healthcare facilities so that they will always be understaffed.
I will also say nothing against nursing homes, but I have seen some where it's like people just don't pay attention. Not all of them. There are some good ones, and I'm not saying that they should be done away with. They should just be better regulated. Personally,
elder care is always going to be a thing, but it's always. And I've been in many facilities over the years, between assisted living, personal care homes, and skilled nursing facilities. It's all about what is the goal of this place. If it is to take care of people who are vulnerable and need, medical care at the end of life, it's going to be a good place to be. And if it's to make money, I wouldn't put my dog in there.
There was one facility that I used to see patients at, and I
remember. I remember this.
I used to call it Shady something. I'm not going to reveal the name. I used to call it. So that's not what it's called. It is called something else. But they had a Alzheimer's or dementia unit.
Yeah.
And it was basically this door in the back that was always locked. And I get why they lock the door. I understand that. Like, they don't want them to wander. I get that.
Memory care unit.
But it felt like it was just put away. Yeah, it's what it felt like. It felt like it was put away in the back and nobody went in. Nobody came out. And so I would go in and I would see they had their own little ward. And I get, like, they don't want them wandering. They don't want them hurting themselves. I totally get that. But it felt so isolated and so lonely in there. It was really sad. And it was so small. Like, it was just this small little place where they just stored people that they didn't know what else to do with. And that was like only a few years ago. So
I would hate to go there now.
I don't know. It was really sad. And I understand how difficult it can be to take care of dementia patients. I really do, because I've been around a lot of dementia patients.
But our hope is that we as a society have enough of a moral standing to take care of the most vulnerable people in our population.
This felt really sad to me. So
anyway, not pass the vibe check.
No. Anyway, but she would basically do this. She was very, she planned how to do this and when to do this.
So often.
So she stated, though, when she was, when caught, she believed she was ending their suffering. That was her quote unquote motive.
No, ma'am.
She was arrested in May of 2023, so not very long at all, on 3 charges of murder and 19 charges to commit murder. So they're still in the process of figuring out who all she did that to.
Yeah.
Now, she actually pled guilty to get out of the death penalty.
Oh.
And in May of 2024, so very recently, she was sentenced to 3 life sentences plus 380 to 760 additional years.
Okay.
So she definitely won't be doing that anymore.
Thank God.
But yeah, there is actually a whole book on insulin murders, and I don't know if I have my phone with me or not.
Get
but
outta here.
Literally look up insulin murders books.
Okay.
There's at least one book written about like a bunch of different insulin
Strictly
murders.
insulin
Yeah.
murders.
I'll look it up and then I'll put it in the show notes. But
Sure.
like, because I was looking through some research and like, yeah, it's just like, yeah, you can order this book, and I was like, that's just wow.
It's an entire book.
And then I began to think like, I wonder who can see all of my search history, because like
This is to the NSA agent who is following us.
there is so much in there that's like,
Hi, Mark.
who is she planning on killing? Oh my God. Which it would be really stupid of me to look all that up and then do anything like that. Like, but there have been people that do that. So I'm not going to say anything. Looking at you, Kenneth, with your talking to people about the perfect plans. But yeah. So, but yeah, that's some insulin cases. There's actually been quite a few, and quite a few who were caught. So don't do it.
Yeah.
Also, don't do it because you don't want to do it, because it's bad. Don't do that.
Also, it's bad.
Don't do that.
It reminds me of like one of my favorite TV shows ever, House of Cards, which had one of the most ridiculous last seasons because of reasons. But it's discovered that, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the series yet, but Frank Underwood is murdered by his closest associate futzing with his medication.
Wait, does House of Cards, did that include a certain actor that was very certainly disgraced because of certain things?
He's been in court for the last several years because of SA allegations.
I heard he got off though.
Yes, but he's basically...
I'm not saying he's innocent. I just heard he got off. Right.
Legally, he got off, but I don't know if he's ever going to get another job in Hollywood.
Yeah, I heard legally he got off, but like, he's a creep.
Yeah. But it's a similar situation in that that's how they resolved the plot, and it was really clunky. And I was like,
well,
oh, okay.
they were probably dealing with what they had.
Yes, they had to reshoot the entire last season,
which goes to show you can be a really good actor and be a creep. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the episode that I have for you today.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for listening. That's going to wrap for today's episode, and we will see you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.